What's up, everybody? My name's Big Cam and welcome back to Comically Boston episode 300. Holy Christ, I can't believe I've done 300 of these. And I've just really over the last maybe year or two found my footing where every Monday has been the weekly nerdy news, Comically Boston podcast, and then if there's any bonus episodes that come out throughout the week, like how they've been recently where we've done about 3 episodes a week doing the weekly nerdy news on Monday, Alien Earth Season 1 breakdown coming out every Wednesday, and then every Friday Peacemaker Season 2 breakdowns have been coming out. And today we have Peacemaker Season 2 Episode 4 titled Need I Say Door? Right? Instead of Need I Say More, it's Need I Say Door? Because that door in the QUC, we're going to find out its origins this episode and where that came, and well, not necessarily exactly its origins, but we're going to know how it came into Peacemaker's possession and his father's. But previously on Peacemaker, we learned Harcourt was hooking up with Flag Jr. and the Harcourt in the other universe is dating a different version of Flag Jr., but he's a complete dork. So our Peacemaker still has a chance with this Harcourt as he saved the day defusing a bomb and killing a bunch of the Sons of Liberty, which could have been good guys, but maybe not. They were taking hostages and bombing a government facility, which happened to be a DMV. Really, why are you messing with the DMV? Out of all the government, like, we know Argus was right up the street and they're gonna blow up the DMV. Maybe it's an easier government facility to take over, but still, something about this other universe doesn't feel right. But Sasha Bordeaux had brought in a new team because the initial team with Fleury and his fuck-ups couldn't get it done, so she brought in some extra pieces to this team, including an eagle hunter played by Michael Rooker, aka Yondu from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and his character I believe is called Red Saint Wild. And then she also introduced us to Rip Jagger, aka Judo Master, and his real name is Rip Jagger, which I just thought was funny, kind of like a rip on Mick Jagger, you know. But Judo Master is back and he's gonna be, you know, a part of this team again with the Argus people, and Sasha Bordeaux and Fleury and ECONOMOS is on that team as well. And they're all going to infiltrate Peacemaker's house, and they're like all on their way to Peacemaker's house and, you know, to arrest him and take his technology. And all this is happening as our Peacemaker is walking back into his room from the other universe. And that's where the credits rolled on episode 3, and that leads us into this episode where we open on a flashback 35 years ago. But also, just to talk about briefly before we get into this episode fully, every episode opens with that Superman logo where he, like, you know, and the chains break off of his chest, and it's kind of like the, you know, OG Superman comic book art from like way back in the day. And I saw a bunch of these other, you know, icons released, kind of like this Peacemaker one. And I thought maybe, you know, they would go ahead and let the old school, you know, comic book version of Peacemaker be the Peacemaker series logo. And then maybe an old school version of Green Lantern is the Lantern series. Same thing Supergirl would be for the Supergirl movie. But it seems that DC Studios is just going to stick with the Superman logo opening up every episode. But I just thought that that Peacemaker logo I saw online, I was like, oh, I thought they would have used this, but no. We do know coming up in the future, though, James Gunn over the last week just announced that Man of Tomorrow is going to be the title of the next Superman project, and he was talking to Howard Stern on Sirius XM Radio, and he was saying that, you know, he kind of dodged the question on like who's going to be the villain in the next movie, and he said that Superman and Lex Luthor are going to have to come together and team up to face a much greater threat. So they're not necessarily working together, more so than having to work together to defeat something greater. So maybe next, you know, movie is more so about Brainiac or some huge villain coming in that Lex Luthor needs to team up with Superman to be able to defeat it. Like, that's gonna be crazy. But Peacemaker Season 2 is apparently leading directly into that Man of Tomorrow sequel, and it's not going to be called Superman 2 Man of Tomorrow or Superman Man of Tomorrow. It's just titled Man of Tomorrow, and he said it's a sequel, but not really, you know, not a direct sequel, you know. So I don't know what he's doing, but I do love that between, you know, Creature Commandos, Peacemaker, Superman, Peacemaker Season 2 and going forward, they all seem so connected so far. You know, like in this episode they mentioned stuff that happens to Rick Flag Sr. in Creature Commandos, and I was like, yeah, it's not hard. It's just a couple of brief little lines, and all of a sudden the universe is really connected. And that connectivity we haven't really had in the MCU in much time, you know, like, and we all like when things connect, you know, like, and it makes it feel worth it. While all these things, you know, we watched, it pays off, you know, when you know all the little secret Easter eggs type thing, you know, where some of them are like, oh, we don't want you to have to do homework to watch your movies. You don't need to have seen Peacemaker or the Suicide Squad or Creature Commandos to understand and get what's going on in Superman. But if you did see those things, it just enhances it a little bit more for us, you know, diehard fans that are, you know, watching everything that he's doing and taking it all in. Like, I can't wait to see a Man of Tomorrow sequel. I can't wait to see Supergirl. I can't wait to see Lanterns. I can't wait to see the remaining 4 episodes of this Peacemaker series. Like, it's been so good so far. But let's jump into that flashback 35 years ago, and we flash back with Agee and the 2 boys, Keith and Chris, out hunting in the middle of the woods. But it seems, you know, Agee takes a shot, and I thought it was like a deer they were hunting for in the middle of the woods, but they walk over to see what he shot, and it seems he has shot an alien. And then he goes to shoot the alien in the head to finish off the job because it's like screaming and whining and shit, and he's like, yeah, it's making too much noise. And just goes to, like, you know, finish the job, and Keith's like, Dad, don't! And he shoots the thing in the head and then slaps Keith. Since when do I take orders from you, pussy boy? You know, like that type of thing. And you're like, oh, Jesus, God, Agee, what a terrible man. But what was this little alien creature? Like, will we learn more about what this alien creature was or is, or like why he had this technology, or why he was in the woods? You know, like, I don't know if we will, but I think, you know, it's just kind of showing us this origin of like how they ended up getting this technology. Because as you can see on the ground there's this little silver container next to the alien as he's like holding his chest or stomach where he got shot, and he's like, you know, reaching out like, no, please, but he's, you know, it's just kind of sounds like screeching and screaming because he's maybe speaking an alien language that we don't understand type thing. But, you know, Chris is sitting there and you know, doesn't want to talk back to his dad because he just saw Keith get slapped, but he's like, Dad, I think there's something in the woods where he was heading. And, you know, Chris picks up that little silver container device thing off the ground, and then they walk over to discover that the quantum unfolding chamber door is just like in the middle of the woods. And they kind of just took the technology for themselves. And this cuts over to the intro right after this. So I was like, ooh, little 35-year flashback. But I was sitting there to myself going, okay, is this our Peacemakers 35 years ago? Which it does seem like it is. But maybe this is that, you know, Keith and Peacemaker Chris from the other universe, and the QUC was found in that universe. But no, I don't think so. I think this happened to our Chris in this universe 35 years ago. And what, John Cena's probably mid-40s, maybe something like that. So he was maybe like 10 or something when this happened. But we cut back after the intro to Chapter 4, titled Need I Say Door, written by James Gunn and directed by Peter Sollett. And we cut back after that title card to ECONOMOS with his new team, and they're like in this van truck and they're heading to Peacemaker's house, and Judo Master's talking shit to him like, hey, you remember when you took that, you know, van and you ran into me with your car and then hit me with a tire iron when I was knocked out? And Red Say Wild sitting across from him like, you hit a Chinaman when he was unconscious? And he's like, I'm not from China, asshole, I'm from Vietnam. You know, like, or I'm Vietnamese or whatever. And John, you know, talking about their last fight, he's like, yeah, I wish I killed you. And he goes, I wish you were dead right now. He goes, you wish I was a corpse sitting next to you? And he goes, yeah. So I could just, you're tiny, I could just carry you around everywhere I went and just remind myself of my victory every time I look at you. And he's like, so you're just gonna torture my family and my loved ones by carrying around my dead corpse? He goes, I think you're thinking about this too much. But then Fleury starts to chime in and he's like, Economos, you're one bad motherfucker. And he's like, oh, you're talking shit up there to calling me Ginger Cool again? I wasn't gonna say nothing. But then Economos snitches to Sasha Bordeaux, telling her that Fleury was winking at him when they were on the phone together. And she's like, you were winking at him? He goes, no, if I did any facial expressions, it was just because I had a face. And, you know, and if I did wink, it just was like a, you know, we're all in this together wink. And Red Say Wild's like, I've been all over the country hunting balds. I ain't never heard of no wink in somebody saying we're all in this together. So that is some bullshit, and that's another point here for Hagrid. And I was like, oh, poor Economos. He's gone from dyebeard to Ginger Cool to, you know, at least Peacemaker calls him like a con of goat, but like Economos, dyebeard, Ginger Cool, and now Hagrid. Oh god, poor Economos. But it's also just funny as hell because Steve Agee is a big ass fuck. He's kind of got longer hair and a beard, so like he kind of doesn't not resemble Hagrid. But Economos is like, I do not want you on my side, you psychopath. And then Red Saint Wild is like, you judge me for ridding the world of beaked vermin when you hit an incapacitated Chinaman? And the way he said it, I was dying. But John he quickly goes, he just said he was from Vietnam, asshole. And he goes, well, ain't that one of the places that Chinamen come from? And Judah Master chimes in, question, are you the dumbest cunt in the world or just top 5? And Red Say Wow just says, well, that ain't nice, son. Before Sasha tells them all to shut the fuck up. And poor Cupid Doll's just sitting there like, I didn't even say anything. And Sasha turns and looks at him and goes, well, you did now, didn't you? And he's just kind of like, And then we see Economos trying to sneakily send a text to, you know, warn Peacemaker that they're on their way. And then we cut over to Peacemaker laying in his bed and back in his house, and he's like slowly looking up at the ceiling, and he starts to see that things are destroyed in his room and around the house, and he's like, dude, what happened? And he's like looking for EAGLY, and he's like, what happened, EAGLY? What's going on here? And EAGLY's in his fridge like throwing cheese and just messing around. He's like, no, this is my food. Your food is over there. Like when Economos sends Peacemaker that warning text, but it's got a bunch of spelling errors. So then Peacemaker's like trying to decipher it, and he's like, well, this could mean immediately, I guess, and Argos agents. And he's like, oh, Argus agents. Oh my god, I gotta go. And then he starts like panicking, running around, trying to grab all his stuff so he can get out of there. And as he's doing this, Argus is arriving and Sasha Bordeaux is laying out the teams, and you guys go around the back, you guys go in the front door, you two go around the side. And so she ends up putting Economos and Red Saint Wild together, and Economos is like, I thought you said I didn't have to work with Captain Cultural Appropriation. Which is a great nickname for fucking Red Saint Wild, because he's this white guy playing this bald eagle hunter, which is like already terrible, but then he's like wearing this Native American shit, talking about Native American cultures, and he's just like, dude, I don't know if this is good. You're definitely Captain Cultural Appropriation. But they end up getting paired up. But we cut back into Peacemaker's house, seeing him rummaging through boxes, trying to find something before he leaves, and he ends up grabbing that little silver device thing that we saw at the very beginning of this episode in the flashback. And we don't know what this device is yet, but this device is from that alien and has to do with the QUC. But he grabs this, tells EAGLY we gotta go, and grabs some cold cuts out of the fridge, some bologna, and goes, we gotta go. And they go out the back door, and he runs into the woods as Argus agents are coming in the front door and coming around the side, and he just makes it into the woods before they can see him. And I was like, oh man, Peacemaker, you are cutting it way too close, brother. We then see Red Saint Wild is trying to find eagle tracks, and he's like, oh, eagle tracks. Oh, I got some eagle droppings here. And he picks it up and eats it. It goes, hint of cold cuts and tater chips, which is a reference to last season, where if you need EAGLY to come to you, crinkle up a bag of chips. He likes chips, so he'll come to you. And he's like, why are you feeding an eagle chips? So he had just been wanting bologna, and he followed him for bologna cold cuts. So it seems that EAGLY, his favorite foods at least, are cold cuts and tater chips. But we know from the post-credit scene of this episode that he eats a lot more stuff as well. But just so gross that he just ate the bird shit. I was like, ah, God, Red Saint Wild. We then see Peacemakers making a run for it through the woods when Judo Master comes back flipping in. And I was like, only Judo Master, instead of like just running in casually, he just backflips in. And then, you know, backflips, grabs a tree branch, swings around, kicks him in the face, and he's like, oh, come on, man. He throws the rest of the bologna at his face. We then cut back from them fighting in the woods to see Red St. Wild is lining up a shot on EAGLY because he just looks up and sees EAGLY flying and he's like, oh, it's gonna be easy. And he starts lining up a shot. He's like, you winged vermin, I'm gonna get you. You know, you beaked winged devil, or something he says like that. And as he's about to line up the shot, ECONOMOS pushes him, knocking him out into a rock. And he's like, oh shit, but he saved EAGLY's life, and I thought when he pushed him down and Red St. Wild hit his head on that rock, I thought he killed him. I was like, oh my god. We then cut back to Peacemaker fighting Judo Master in the woods, and they end up, you know, tumbling down this hill, and Judo Master falls first, and then Peacemaker falls on top of him, smooshing him and knocking him out. And Chris gets up and says, God, you're like a little piece of toilet paper stuck to my shoe, and I just can't get you off. And then he picks up the little silver alien device container thing and runs off through the woods. As we cut over to ADEBYO getting an emergency text from Chris saying, hey, can you pick me up? And she's like looking at this like ad that she's putting out for her new, you know, security company, and she put it in this magazine and she's all hype about it. But then later Chris tells her like, this magazine is shit. You're only 12 people read it. You're not gonna get very much business from this. I'm sorry. We then see Red St. Wild is not dead, and he's waking up from being knocked out by that rock. And he's like, what happened? He's like, oh no, there was a second eagle. And he goes, second eagle? Oh god, my third eye's been opening, boy. That eagle there's gotta be the eagle that rules all eagles. You know, and I'm like, oh god, here we go. Now this guy's gonna be on a power trip. I gotta kill all the eagles. Or just EAGLY maybe is this all-powerful eagle and he rules over all other eagles. And Red St. Wild's like, this is the moment that my life's been leading to, son. And he's like, are you sure? I think you might just be making this shit up so that you can kill eagles. And he's like, nope, no, no, I'm positive. No, that's the king of the eagles. And he's like, we might disagree on some of the specifics, but at least we can both agree that so-called EAGLY needs to die. And John's like, no, we don't agree on this. And he's like, yes, we do. No, we don't. Yes, we do. No, we don't. And they do it like 2-3 times, and it's like, oh god, these two are like children arguing. But Michael Rooker's so funny. I really like that he made this like new character for him with Red St. Wild, and he just seems like a nutcase. But John then gets called into the house by SHASHA, and we see Peacemaker getting picked up by ADEBYO, and he immediately calls Vigilante, tells him, hey man, can you buy some doors? Because he's got to move the QUC, so he must need another door. We then see Sasha ask John to open the QUC, and Fleury says that you are one curmudgeonly motherfucker, Ginger Cool, and ECONOMOS spits on his face and says, I told you not to fucking call me that. And Sasha just tells him, like, go get your stuff in the truck and open the fucking door and hack into the closet, would you? And then Sasha turns around and looks at Fleury and winks at him and just like, we're all in this together, right? Which is not what a wink means, but god damn it. Every time I see Sol Rodriguez as Sasha Bordeaux, I'm like, I'm in love with this woman. She could wink at me like that any day of the week. We then see Peacemaker in the car with ADEBYO, and he's telling her what that little silver device thing is. And he has had, you know, it from the flashback since 35 years ago they've had this thing, and it's how they moved the QUC from the middle of the woods into his father's trailer, and then his father thought it was dangerous, so he had Keith do it, and then Chris did it one other time to move it to his father's house where they currently are. And ADEBYO is like, I thought your father was a super genius. And Chris is like, are you kidding? He flunked out of 10th grade. So his father didn't make the tech, and he's not a super genius, but he is somewhat, because ADEBYO's like, but how did he make the helmets then? And Chris says, well, that's a more complicated story. What? So where did the helmets come from? You know, and my first thought was like, if this Agee and the Agee we know isn't, you know, a super genius, and maybe the other one from the other universe isn't either, maybe, because he does say there are like 99 doors and 99 universes in that QUC, so maybe there's like an all-powerful Agee out there from another universe that made the QUC, and there's just like one Agee out there that's really smart and helps the rest of them. Or, you know, like what you know, did the alien make the Peacemaker helmets in the QUC and then they just took it for themselves? Like, who made this QUC? You know, even though it was that alien and that's how they found it and that's like the origin of how Chris got it, that still doesn't tell us how it was made and where it came from and what that alien was doing. And then there's also that other question of like, okay, who's making the Peacemaker helmets then? You know, because that other universe that he walked into, the good universe, had a bunch of Peacemaker helmets outside that door as well, you know? So who's making this stuff? ECONOMOS then, while he's in the truck, you know, getting his tools for hacking into the closet, he, you know, calls Peacemaker and tells him that he's going to get fired and that he saved EAGLY's life. And Chris is like, how? And he's like, you know, can you stall him for me? And he's like, I don't think so. And he's like, just stall him as long as you can. And ECONOMOS almost gets caught on the phone by Mexicali. And he's like, she sent me to help you. And he's like, I don't need any help. I just need this case thing. And he's like panicking. He's very not good under pressure, ECONOMOS. But he's getting better from season 1. He was much worse back then. But I love when ECONOMOS called Peacemaker. His caller ID contact for him is ECONOGOAT. And then Chris tells ADEBYO that 6 months ago, with that flashback we had seen, EAGLY found that door in the QUC, and Chris tells her that this is just one of the 99 other universes, and he tells ADEBYO about this other universe and how it's better than this one, and how his father and brother are still alive. And then Chris goes, turn right here, and he brings her to this abandoned hunting shed that used to be his grandfather's as he tries to set up that device to transfer the QUC to this place in the middle of the woods. And as ECONOMOS is stalling back at Peacemaker's place and Sasha knows he's stalling and he's like, I'm just trying to figure out the best way to do this, that's all. And she's like, didn't you hack into the CIA when you were 14? And apparently we find out that he got caught doing this when he was 14 and that's how he got recruited to do this job. So, you know, giving ECONOMOS a little bit of character background. I kind of like that, you know. ECONOMOS is, you know, not one of the most main characters of the show, but he is for me. Like, I want to know as much about Peacemaker and Vigilante and HARCOURT and ADEBYO as much as I want to know about, you know, ECONOMOS. And they're all 11th Street kids, and they're all very important, at least to me. But ECONOMOS is trying to stall longer, and as he's about to, like, hit the door, he's like, wait, do you hear that? Sounds like a cat stuck in a drawer. We should go check. And they're all like, fuck the cat, open the fucking closet door. And he's like, okay. And as he does it, at the very same time, Peacemaker is activating the device in the other house. And I have a clip of this because he activates and it like sucks everything in the room and like everything outside the house towards the QUC. But I wonder if that only happened because ECONOMOS was trying to open the other door, so it like created like a vacuum, you know, like an air pocket seal type thing. And like, you know, as everything gets sucked into this door, everything explodes outwards and it sends ADEBYO and Chris flying backwards. But I have a clip of this.
Okay, here's where I need you to go outside.
Why?
Just do it. I'll be right behind you.
What the fuck? Shit! Is that what you wanted it to do?
Maybe.
Is that what you wanted it to do? Maybe. I've only done it 2 other times in my life. And he's like, I don't really remember what happened. So, you know, successfully transfers the QUC door to the shed in the middle of the woods. But I love that, like, ECONOMOS, she opens up the door, she's like, what the fuck? And ECONOMOS just kind of has this, like, look of, like, trying not to get caught by the people behind him, but he's just so relieved that it's not the QUC and that Peacemaker was able to, like, you know, transfer it, and he was able to help his friend, you know, not get caught, and he was able to stall for him just long enough. And he's like, I don't know how he did it, but he did it. Good. And now this device that's going to get him put in jail isn't in his house. Sasha Bordeaux opens the door and finds a closet with a bunch of old sweaters in it, so that's not right. And she calls Rick immediately, and Rick Flag Sr., and she's telling him what happened. He's like, what do you mean? Why would he have that type of code on a closet with a bunch of sweaters in it? And then, you know, she says something to him, but we can't hear it, but it must be like, I don't know, but go to the next phase of the plan. We got to get something that he cares about. And he goes, okay, get me an address for EMILIA Harcourt. And, you know, so now he is looking to recruit Harcourt against Peacemaker. And then we cut over to Harcourt drunk fighting another guy out behind a bar. And then she's like back at her place spitting up blood when there's a ring at the door. And it's Rick Flag Sr. But I have a little clip of this cut between him being like, get me an address for EMILIA Harcourt, and then her drunk, maybe not, maybe just trying to feel and doing this thing that she always does where she goes to bars and gets in fights with guys. I don't know. It seems to be her kink.
Get me an address for EMILIA Harcourt.
And James used that similar fight technique where like the guy gets punched in the face and we see the teeth fly out and kind of hit into camera. That same kind of effect was used in Superman when Superman punched one of the guys and the teeth hit the camera lens. But this time the teeth hit the camera lens and immediately transitions into her spitting blood into the sink. So, you know, maybe it's supposed to be like her spitting out one of her teeth or something like that. You know, like the ting ting, you know, hitting the camera. It's supposed to be her like teeth hitting the sink. But it doesn't seem like she's lost any teeth, but she definitely has a bloody mouth, and she's like, who the fuck's ringing my door? And she looks out and like sees Rick Flag at her door, and she's like, oh, okay, straighten up a little bit, you know? Like, I don't look that presentable, but let me like swallow the blood in my mouth so I don't have just a red mouth. Like, and kind of just straightens up her straps a little bit, you know, tries to tighten herself up a little bit to talk to Rick Flag Sr. And she opens the door and she's like, General! And he's like, come on, you know me by Rick by now. Like, come on, you don't need to call me Sir or General, but you can call me Rick, come on. And Harcourt is like, would you like some coffee? And she remembers his coffee order. And he's like, you can remember that, but you can't remember to call me Rick. And she's like, well, I don't call you Rick because I called Flag Jr. Rick and I was hooking up with him. So you're Sir or Dad or, you know, and the other Rick is her Rick, you know. Harcourt then brings up his injury that he received in Creature Commandos from Clayface breaking his back, and then she, you know, congratulates him on getting his promotion to Director of Argus. But I love just like a quick little line here and connects us to the events of what happened to Rick Flag Sr. in Creature Commandos. And also, like, there's a Clayface movie being filmed right now. Is that Clayface that broke Rick Flag Sr.'s back the same Clayface that's going to be in that movie? Maybe, maybe not, but if they're supposed to be both in this DC universe, it very well could be. Or maybe this is another Clayface, because that one kind of died because it got electrocuted, but it's made out of clay. It could just form back together. I don't know. I don't know how Clayface's anatomy works that much. But, you know, Flag's looking around her apartment, and Flag sees that Harcourt has her 11th Street Kids picture with Peacemaker and the rest of the crew on her wall framed. And this is like a photo she took on her iPhone. So she could just keep it in her iPhone and scroll back to it whenever she wanted to. But it meant that much to her that she made friends on this team and has a team that actually cares about her with this 11th Street Kids. And even though 3 of them are really fucked up with ECONOMOS, Peacemaker, and Vigilante, but we've been learning this season that Harcourt seems to be the most fucked up out of any of them. You know, at least, you know, emotionally. But I thought it was very cute, though, that she got that photo framed. Like, it really meant that much to her that she made these friends. And I was like, aw. But, you know, Flag sees it, and, you know, she's like, you know, we haven't talked probably since the funeral, you know, and Ricky and you all have we all have our connections to Waller, and we all, you know, and she goes, Sir, Peacemaker, you know, he killed Rick by orders of Miss Waller, you know, and he's like, I'm aware, but we also, you know, he says he disobeyed Waller in Picolistan, she disobeyed Waller with like the butterflies and in Corto Maltese, and so did Rick Flag Jr. You know, so we all like know what it's like to work for her and have shitty orders and fucked up orders, but we also know like that we still have the ability to not go through with those orders, right? So at the time, Peacemaker killing his son, personally, Chris could have gone, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to follow these orders from Waller, you know, instead being the good soldier that he was, killing Rick Flag Jr. Like, this is so fucked up. And our Rick Flag was actually a cool dude and like a serious soldier, and the other one just seems like a complete dork. And yet he's with Harcourt, like, oh. But Rick then tells Harcourt that she has been black booked from working in any other intelligence agency, and she was black booked by Waller when she was walking out the door type shit. You know, one of the last things Waller was able to do as like, you know, with her power was fuck over Harcourt. But it also then, you know, makes me question, was Waller arrested for this, or was she just like made to step down type thing? And if so, where is Waller and what the fuck is she up to? Because even if Waller isn't in the public as the head of Argus, you know Amanda Waller's up to something, even if she's in the shadows doing stuff behind the scenes. Like, come on. And when he tells Harcourt this, she gets pissed and she's like, what? So my 18 years of service doesn't mean anything? And Flag's like, oh, come on, you're not in it for the accolades. And she's like, the accolades I can do without, but I'd rather not be without my utilities, which are about to get shut off. And Rick says, well, that's why I'm here. And he tells her that there might be a way for Harcourt to get back on the government's good graces. And Harcourt's like, I'll do anything. And Flag says that she needs to bring in the Peacemaker. And she's like, oh, good. But so now, you know, her only way to get back into the government's good graces and get a job again is to now bring in Peacemaker, who she kind of has feelings for, is her friend. Even if she doesn't, like, love him, he's definitely still her friend. And, like, you know, a part of the 11th Street Kids. So I just think it's really fucked up that Flag's making her do this. And Flag, with his power now for Argus, is using it to get Peacemaker. Like, what did he really do wrong? Just have this technology in the closet? And like, yeah, he did say that they're trying to track down all this technology since Metropolis and what Lex Luthor did. But Lex Luthor ripped a hole in reality. Peacemaker doesn't seem to, you know, his technology seems advanced enough that it's not ripping holes in reality. At least the way he's using it. He's just walking in and out of there whenever he like needs to bring EAGLY to go for a fly when he's cold, or when he just wants to go to that other universe and see what's going on over there. But we cut back over to ADEBYO asking Chris about the QUC, and she says, you said that your father and brother are in there, but is there another you in there? And I was like, oh, very good question, ADEBYO. And then Peacemaker says, yeah, it got kind of fucked up, and he has to tell her that he killed his own self from another universe, and he goes, it was in self-defense, he was gonna kill me. She's like, why did he want to kill you? And he goes, I was in his room. And she's like, what were you doing in his room? And he goes, I was looking at a photo of the other Peacemaker in Harcourt, fully in love. And she's like, what the fuck? But Chris goes, but she's dating the Rick Flag Jr. from the other universe, but she still loves me. And ADEBYO goes, Flag still loves you? And he's like, no, Harcourt. You know, but I just love that, like, ADEBYO was a step behind, and then all of a sudden she has to hit him with the, Rick Flag Jr. is in love with you? You know, because she's, like, trying to figure it out what's going on here, and she's like, holy shit, this shit is crazy. I can't believe what you're telling me. And ADEBYO is like, what in the weird Twilight Zone shit is going on here? And then ADEBYO is like, what if this universe doesn't really exist? It isn't real. And, you know, it's just showing you what you want, you know, most. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting theory. But then Chris kind of shuts down and goes, nah, I'm pretty sure it's real. And then Chris is like, my brother needs me in this other universe, and I have to give the other Harcourt some kind of explanation. She's like, what do you mean your brother needs you? He's not your brother. He's the other Chris's brother. And if you killed him, his brother's already gone. You know, like, and he's like, no, I can't leave him like that. Like, I lost my brother. It was the worst thing that ever happened, you know, blah, blah, blah. And the way he's saying it, I was just like, oh, man, Peacemaker. Like, so much heart, like, in this season for John Cena as Chris. You know, like, he's just really crushing it. But ADEBYO's like, yo, God put you in this universe. This is where you're meant to be. And he's like, yeah, well, maybe I'm not. Maybe it was some kind of cosmic fuck up, and I ended up in the fucked up universe where I can't catch a break, and he ended up in the world of sunshine and rainbows in the good universe where his brother's still alive and his father loves him and he's a freaking hero. And ADEBYO just goes, it doesn't feel right, Chris, and you got that right, ads. The other universe does not feel right. There's something wrong with that place. Whether it's just they're racist and they killed all the black people over there or what, but something's certainly up. Maybe it's like she was saying. Maybe this other universe isn't a good universe and he's not a hero, but the universe itself is just showing Peacemaker, our Chris, what he wants. But if that's the case, why would he want to kill his other self from this other universe? You know what I mean? Like, so I think it is a real universe and not just in his head. But, you know, it's a fair question. But I have a clip of Peacemaker talking to HARCOURT, and you can just see the emotion on John Cena's face as he's delivering this kind of dialogue.
Is there a you in there?
What?
You say there's your dad, there's your brother, but is there a you in there?
I got kind of fucked up.
How?
Well, I didn't mean to, yeah.
Mean to what?
Kill him.
You killed your own self from a parallel dimension?
It was self-defense. He was gonna kill me. He found me in his room.
Doing what?
Looking at a picture of me and Emilia Harcourt, like, in love.
Back the fuck up.
She's dating Rick Flag Jr., who's still alive, but really still in love with me.
Rick Flag Jr. is in love with you?
No, Harcourt.
Wait, okay, this is becoming some fucked up Twilight Zone shit.
Yeah, right.
You ever thought that maybe there ain't another dimension at all?
What?
Like maybe you walk through that door in there and you're in some sort of world that messes with your mind and gives you whatever it is you wanted, but none of it's real.
No, I'm pretty sure it's real.
At the end of the day, does it matter?
Yeah.
Why? You can't be thinking about going back in there.
I have to.
Why?
First off, my brother, okay? Losing him as a kid, that was the worst moment of my life. Now he's gonna lose me if I don't...
He already lost his brother if you killed him, Chris.
You don't understand.
Maybe I do.
I owe Emilia an explanation about something.
About what?
Whether or not I want to explore a relationship with her.
What?
I'm not just gonna fucking stand the girl up. She's damaged enough. He cheated on her.
Dude, if it's real, which I still very much doubt, she thinks you're somebody else.
No, not really. We have the same DNA. I passed the fucking eye test. It's like me, except more of a dick with the worst tasting clothes.
I find that hard to believe.
Look what I'm wearing. Looks like a Saudi prince vomited his fucking dining room all over me.
You're wearing his clothes?
You think I bought this ads? It's fucking hateful.
Chris, no matter how green the grass is over there, our biggest problems in life are the ones that we carry within ourselves. Everything else evens out. This is where God put you. You belong here.
Maybe I don't.
Why?
Maybe the universe fucked up, ads, you know? You know, maybe I belong in there and my asshole doppelganger belongs here. But some fucking cosmic occurrence switched us. So I end up in the dark dimension where I can't catch a fucking break. He ends up in the land of goodness and light with a brother who's still alive and a father who fucking loves him. The good us. Where I'm a fucking hero.
It don't feel right, Chris.
Peacemaker! Oh, hey, Ads.
Hey, Adrian.
I got some doors and hinges, just like you asked.
Oh, so much heart in that scene, and like, and then of course Vigilante comes in at the end to Peacemaker, you know, to make it a big joke again. But he says he brought the doors for them. But like, I just thought it was such a powerful, you know, thing that like, ADEBYO says to him, you know, like, yo, God put you in this universe. This is where you belong. And like, he's like, maybe I don't, you know, like. Maybe my asshole doppelganger belongs here where I can't catch a fucking break. You know, like you could hear his voice break a little bit as he says it. And he's like, and his father loves him, you know, like, and he's a fucking hero, you know, like, oh, he's just so emotional, but he's really going through it at the moment. And as Vigilante, you know, comes in and Chris goes to help him unstrap the doors off of his car, he texts HARCOURT and sets up a meeting and then asks Vigilante to use his car. And he's like, is that a smart idea? And he's like, I gotta go meet HARCOURT and I need her to answer a question to know what I'm gonna do next. So what question does Peacemaker have to ask HARCOURT? Do you love me back? Maybe. Or, you know, we'll find out next episode. But HARCOURT then, you know, getting the text from Chris, goes to meet Chris, and Flag and the rest of Argus are still outside of her apartment. And she goes to leave, and Flag's like, you know, oh, fucking, what did you find something out? This is your last chance. Please tell us what you found out. And, you know, as like she's walking down, he like tells the other two agents, take ECONOMOS' phone, I don't trust him. So, you know, ECONOMOS is there, but he, you know, doesn't have his phone anymore, can't necessarily send any warning texts like he was doing, and you know, he definitely doesn't want to be there, so he might end up quitting sooner rather than later. But HARCOURT is going to the meeting with Peacemaker, and she says to Flag that she will distract Peacemaker for them, and that they will need more than just those two morons to take him down. And Sasha's sitting there with Fleury and goes, who? What'd you say? You know, they're calling us morons? And yeah, she's definitely right though. Like, they're gonna need much more than just two morons to take down the Peacemaker. And Sasha's like, oh! But Flag says, you're doing the right thing, HARCOURT. She says, I know. And ECONOMOS just kind of looks at her as she's getting into her car, and they're both just kind of exchanging this like look of like, yeah, this sucks, tough spot, I get it. We then hear a shot of redemption by Heat plays as Red St. Wild is doing this weird blood eagle ritual, and he's like, you know, getting undressed, and he's in like this Indian garb, and he's like dancing around. And then we see, you know, Red St. Wild is like using the blood from the little cut he got from ECONOMOS pushing him over, and he's using the blood from his third eye and putting it in like this little eagle art on the ground. And then it kind of turns into this like bluish purplish fire, and he like draws the same symbol on his forehead as there's like blood dripping down his face, and then this fire goes up and around him, and we see him like using this ritual or whatever he's doing to fly through like the land and find EAGLY. And he ends up seeing EAGLY flying and finds out where he's going, and he goes, ah, Settler Hills, I got you, motherfuckers. So Red St. Wild has figured out their location and where they're at in the middle of the woods, so this is going to end poorly for them. But Peacemaker is also heading to a meeting with HARCOURT, so he's going to be out in the open, and Argus is already in position. And I just thought it was so good that like Rick Flag's in like this terrible little disguise, and the rest of the Argus crew is like in street clothes but all standing around with little earpieces in. But I loved Sasha Bordeaux's fucking look here. I was like, oh my goodness, this woman, I am so obsessed with Sol Rodriguez. She's so freaking gorgeous. I love everything about her. But we go to credits on episode 4 as Peacemaker just stares into camera, and the credits roll as that song, A Shot of Redemption, plays by Heat. And then, you know, we go through the credits, and then the post-credit scene is Red St. Wild talking to ECONOMOS about what EAGLY, you know, shit. And he's like, 4 days ago, a hint of cold cuts and tater chips. And that's what we had gotten in the actual episode. But the post-credit scene, we get a whole list of other things that was in EAGLY's shit. And, you know, what's in EAGLY's diet. And he says hints of Spam, Twizzlers, M&Ms, Fruity Pebbles, protein powder, tikka masala, lima beans, pad thai, A5 Wagyu. And ECONOMOS is like, he ate all of that since the last shit he took. And Michael Rooker's like spits, it looks so disgusting as he splits. Then he goes, beluga caviar. And ECONOMOS is like, you don't know what beluga caviar tastes like. And as ECONOMOS says, you know, you don't know what beluga caviar tastes like, he sounds like he's about to throw up. And I think it was just the look of Michael Rooker's spit just looked too disgusting. And Red St. Wild's like, God, that eagle eats better than me. And then I have the trailer for next week. So let's take a sneak peek at next week and see what we're heading into.
Everyone have eyes?
Target in sight.
Take him out. EAGLY!
All of this is about revenge for Chris having killed Rick Jr.
I need to find that dimensional rift.
Sir, you have every right to be angry. I just got caught up in a dark way of looking at the world. I'm not sure redemption is possible. At least not here. You ready for the next adventure, pal?
Wow, so Judo Master has, you know, there seemed to be in like a park, and Judo Master has Peacemaker lined up in his sights, and somebody maybe warns him, or maybe he just misses the first shot, and Peacemaker just grabs civilians to put in his way of the targets. So it looks like Judo Master and Argus are about to be wiping out some civilians, and then Peacemaker's covered in blood back at the woods at the cabin, and Michael Rooker's Red St. Wild has a giant gun that he's going to be hunting down EAGLY with. and it looks like we're going to be getting a flashback to Rick Flag's funeral, and Rick Flag Sr.'s sitting there like comforting Harcourt, and she's like, you know, sitting there looking at his casket and like, you know, remembering Rick Flag Jr. And it looks like Peacemaker gets caught by Argus and, you know, is in like an interrogation with Rick Flag Sr. and it looks like they're going to be fighting. And then he's like, I don't think redemption can happen in this universe, you know, at least not here. So let's go try and do it in the other universe. And he goes, Eagly, you ready for the next adventure, buddy? So it looks like next episode, our Peacemaker is officially going to have enough with this universe and give up and just go, you know what, maybe it's time to go explore the other universe and live out my days as a hero with my brother and my father that loves me, and you know, try and make things work with that other Harcourt. But next week would lead us into episode 5, and then there's still 6, 7, and 8 that I believe nobody has seen because James Gunn hasn't shown anybody episodes 6, 7, and 8, and they only sent out episodes 1 through 5 for press releases. And I don't know, man. If this is where we are at the middle of the season, next week is going to drop a bomb and going to be crazy, and he's just going to, you know, maybe kill Rick Flag Sr., maybe not, but like he's going to get away from Argus and then get back to his door and go, I think it's time to get the fuck out of Dodge and go into the other universe. So we weren't in that universe this episode, and we might not be in that universe next episode, so it's going to be a couple episodes since we had seen Earth 2, so who knows what's going on over there. Maybe his father and brother are freaking out all over again, like, where's Chris, where's Peacemaker, you know, like, I don't know. I've been really fascinated with this show so far and what's been happening, and everything that's gone on in this show has been so good, and I really can't say enough good things about it. But if there's anything I missed in this episode that you guys want to talk about, make sure to leave those down in the comment section below, or you can message me on my other social medias. Links for those down in the description below. Make sure you follow me, Big Cam, 2 G's in the Big, pretty much anywhere, and just look for this face and you'll find me. Thank you guys so much for coming on by. If you would like to support the channel, the best way to do that is liking this video, commenting down below, subscribing if you haven't already, and make sure you hit that bell so you get the notifications when future Peacemaker breakdowns come out. Once again, my name's Big Cam, and I will see you beautiful people in the next one. Peace!